Hello, friends. This is Dr. Richard Ruling here with breaking news. Ryan Day, a pastor for years in the SDA church, also working at 3ABN broadcasting, but has left the church. And I would like to address some of the issues that he cites because I believe they're instructive and helpful to us to understand how that could even happen. Okay. Um, I listened to most of his 48 minutes video online in explanation, and it does seem like um, a big problem in his thinking is Ellen White, who is considered a prophetess in the SDA church, but he listens back and forth to people outside the church that are attacking Ellen White and listens to other people in the church that are defending, but maybe he didn't read Ellen White as much as he should have. Okay, um, I'm a retired physician. I taught health at Loma Linda University for 4 years, from 74 to 78. And my school, in the School of Public Health, got $40 million from National Institutes of Health for a study to learn why Seventh-day Adventists live about 7 years longer than other non-smoking groups. I wish they had talked to me because I could have saved them some money. It wouldn't cost $40 million to say that the real answer was the writings of Ellen White. Okay? She wrote so accurately that Dr. Clive McKay, professor of nutrition at Cornell University, wrote a series of reviews in the Adventist Review around 1960, late 50s, I'm not sure which, but his assessment of Ellen White as an author on nutrition. He was amazed that she did not incorporate the fads and fallacies of her day, which was before the advent of modern scientific nutrition, where we can do studies and check on what's true, what's not. In Ellen White's day, there were theories like salt is evil, you shouldn't use any salt. She never took a wrong position. She said, um, we should not eat largely of salt, but a little salt is necessary to the blood. And today we measure the electrolytes and the sodium level, in a blood test. So she was right about that as an example, okay? And Dr. McKay summarized about a 6 or 7 page review to say that in spite of the fact that her works were written long before modern scientific nutrition, no better overall guide is available today. Now, that's huge, okay? She walked the minefield of what's good and what's not good, and I see that in other things. I'm a retired physician, an MD, board certified internal medicine, but she was exactly right on medicine as well. Sadly, church leaders were stupid, okay? They hijacked her school so they could get AMA accreditation. All right, they thought that would be great to have a medical school accredited by the AMA. Well, to do so, they had to teach pharmacology. She said no. It was her school, really, because she had sent the $5,000 deposit for it to buy it when leaders sat around and had no money on the day that the deposit was due to finish the deposit. And surprise, surprise, the postman comes on that day, walks up the steps, up. They heard him coming, and he lays one letter on the table from Ellen White, mailed from New Jersey to Loma Linda, California, a month early, and it arrives on the day with a check for $5,000. It was to be her school. She wanted it to train missionaries with natural remedies. They hijacked her school to get AMA accreditation and add drugs, and now it's just a regular medical school. Not many missionaries going anywhere. We want to make money, 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 money. Okay, that's bad situation and wasn't what she had in mind at all for her school. Her school was originally called the College of Medical Evangelists. That means good news. The good news is the body heals itself. But today, medical care, and I'm sticking my neck out to say this, but when I was teaching at the School of Health in the late 70s, 1976 or 7-ish, the dean comes to me one day and he says, they're starting to call medical care health care. Like, how could they do that? He knew that medical care is not health care. When I studied for my boards in internal medicine, the study of internal medicine is the diagnosis and treatment of disease. has nothing to do with healthcare. I can remember one statement in 2 years of training that was healthcare, in my opinion. Okay, I'm going to give it to you a little humorous, but an internist, board, I'm sure he's board certified, he was our trainer. He said, as we saw one patient in the hospital, she was obese. And he said to her, go in front of a mirror and undress and be honest. Now that was the statement on healthcare. Basically, but basically, medical care is not healthcare. It is the diagnosis and treatment of disease, usually with pharmaceutical agents, that today are a leading cause of illness and death from adverse drug reactions. Ellen White was exactly right, and she said in her book, Ministry of Healing, page 126, that drugs do not cure disease, and in most cases, they only change the form and location of the disease. As a young doctor, I struggled to understand how that was true, and I've now understand it's as an adverse drug reaction. My former wife had a bladder infection, and I was retired at the time. She went to another doctor to get a prescription, antibiotic, Cipro. She only needed it for 3 days. She was over it. She stopped the medicine, and she was fine for a few months, and then she had a rash. And I said, you need to see your doctor for a blood test. He did the blood test and urgently called the next morning to say, she has no platelets in her blood. I'm referring her to a hematologist. The hematologist put her in Washington Adventist Hospital and did a bone marrow. No platelets in the bone marrow. He took out her spleen. Still no better. He treated her with high steroids and transfusions until she died of a stroke. Well, I went through the physician's desk reference and I discovered that Cipro, the medication that she had taken, and it's the only medication. She's a chiropractor's daughter, didn't believe in drugs, okay, but she did this time because she didn't know what else to do. She had taken water and cranberry juice and uva ursi and herb, still troubled, so she took the drug, and it wiped out her platelets, and it's recorded as one of the adverse effects of Cipro. The physician's desk reference is about 4 inches thick, 9 by 12 pages, fine print of contraindications, drug interactions, carcinogenesis, pregnancy warnings, everything you don't want in the prescription, and there's no way that a physician can even hardly understand one drug that way, okay? They call it the practice of medicine. And take this and see me in a couple weeks. I want to be sure you're still alive or well. They don't say that, but this is a practice of medicine. And I understood it then. Sadly, pharma is a liar, okay? They say this is the latest, the greatest, and so on, but they don't tell you all the things it can do to you. And pharmakia is the Greek word for translated, come out of Babylon, for by her sorceries are the nations deceived. Sorceries is the translation of the word pharmakia. How do they get the word sorcery from a Greek word, pharmakia? This is misinformation, and you don't think, when you read it, you'd never dream that drugs is what deceives all nations. But Loma Linda is up to its ears and eyes in pharmakia, and they call it Adventist health. It's not health at all. It's drugs. And so I'm just saying that's an example to me of how Ellen White is still ahead of physicians and science today, because science can tell you what it might do, but they don't know who it's going to do it to. So bottom line, I'm sorry for Pastor Ryan Day's experience, but he didn't know it all as far as Ellen White, and she, in my book, shines, and I'm going to give you a few more examples of this, because he says he read most of her writings and so on. I guess he didn't even say that. He had read her, he had done a study, but Ellen White explains his problem, I think. He's troubled over not being able to find the word investigative judgment in the Bible. Well, it doesn't say investigative, but in Revelation 11th chapter, verse 18, I believe it is, it refers to the time of the dead, that they should be judged. This is a judgment of the dead people. I don't care about that. I'm not worried about that. I'm living. And she makes the statement in her book, Great Controversy, that since 1844, the time of the judgment of the dead has been going on. Soon, no one knows how soon it will pass to cases of the living. Well, I think I know how soon it's going to come. It's called the day of the Lord, which is the end time expression of night of the Lord in Egypt. When God said, I will execute judgment, okay, he did that. He came, let me back up and say this, that it's the end time period, I think, of 7 years. Because in Revelation 11, 1 to 6, rise and measure the temple. God is going to measure the temple, the church, and find out who measures up and who doesn't. And he says, I will give power to my 2 witnesses for 1,260 days. That's the biblical term for 3.5 years. And it says the 2 witnesses, which I think are Old and New Testament, have the power to shut the heavens and turn water to blood. I believe there'll be 144,000 that get that kind of power, like Moses and Elijah. Okay, Elijah shut the heavens for 3.5 years, and Moses turned water to blood for Pharaoh in Egypt. Okay, and I believe that's coming very soon, and I can explain how, but I want to answer Ryan Day's problem right now first, and that is that it's a time of judgment at the end when I believe, well, let me just explain it. The book of Joel has 5 references, more than any other book, to the term Day of the Lord. And I'm believing that it's the end time extension of Night of the Lord in Egypt when God gave judgment. Because America is like Egypt today. Egypt enslaved Israel, and America has enslaved most people in alcohol, tobacco, caffeine, drugs, negative lifestyles, basically. And God is going to execute judgment on America the same as he did Egypt. In Jeremiah 30, verse 11, God says he's going to make a full end of all other nations except his people. And I don't want to be in America when the full end is made. I believe it's coming soon. But I believe God says in the very next chapter, okay, Jeremiah 31:1, at the same time, this is the latter day it's talking about in the previous verse, he will gather us from the coast, the lame, the blind, the north country, women with child, great company will return to the land of the covenant, where he's going to set up his kingdom. And it says your children will come again to their own border. They'll come from the land of the enemy. I believe this is the land of the enemy, okay? And it's going to do what Babylon wants it to do, compel all people to false worship. That's in Revelation 13. You can't buy or sell unless you're going to go along. Well, that's going to be hard on Adventists because they won't be able to attend church on Sunday and get approved, okay? They won't have the number, and they're going to be, I think, persecuted bad. But I would rather be with God in the kingdom he's going to set up in the land of the covenant. Beulah land means marrying land. God's going to marry the people to the land in the land of the covenant. And it's not just Jeremiah who got things wrong. Ezekiel, you can remember it as 3 dozen chapters, 36, and 2 dozen verses. Verse 24, I will take you from... gather you out of all nations, bring you into your own land. Then I'll sprinkle clean water on you, you'll be clean. Give you a new heart, put my spirit in you, and cause you to walk in my statutes and judgments, and you'll dwell in the land that I gave your fathers. And I will be your God. What more could we want? Well, that's coming as an opportunity, I believe, in the near future. But before it comes, God is going to give a problem, first of all, to the Jews that are there, because they don't want Christians coming there. They're not interested in Christians or God. They just came for free land from the UN. And God is going to kick them out, okay, with the Muslims. In Zechariah 14, verse 1, Day of the Lord, end time period, I'm going to gather all nations against Jerusalem. Houses will be rifled, women ravished, half the city will go into captivity. That's what Hamas did a year and a half ago, on October 7 of 23. And we thought things are pretty well settled, maybe. We just don't hear about it from time to time. But the trouble in Israel has been escalating. Last year, Iran got into the picture, sending some rockets over to Israel. And this year, surprise, surprise, 40,000 Hamas soldiers have surfaced in Israel. Okay, don't know how they got there, but their intent is to wipe Israel off the map. And I'm believing that very soon, Zechariah 14 will be exactly on target, and they will take the city. Okay, and it will be trouble. But I believe that God, it says in, the people that are there right now don't believe God gave his only begotten son and that he died, at Calvary. Okay, they're unbelievers. And the Muslims are unbelievers too in that process. Allah only has no son. Okay, but the Lord is going to roar from Jerusalem. This is Joel 3:16 for people who don't believe John 3:16. The Lord shall roar from Jerusalem, heavens and earth will shake. And Zechariah 14 verse 5 says the Muslims, it doesn't say Muslims, it says they're going to flee. Okay, so I'm seeing that we're there very close, and it could happen even, the attack on Jerusalem could happen before the end of this week, because it's Passover week. Titus came at Passover. In Noah's day, no man knows the day or hour, but as the days of Noah, the flood came with Passover timing, and I call it 9/11 timing in Noah's time. Because in Numbers 9 of the book of the Bible, fourth book of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers is the fourth book. In chapter 9, verse 10, 11, there's a provision for Passover a month later in May. Why? If an Israelite took a long trip, he couldn't get back in time for Passover, he's not excused. Because Passover represented judgment, and we all have to face judgment. So he has to keep it in the second month. And I believe that this year, those timing dates are going to be significant, because when Noah entered the ark, at the end of the week, the flood came. And I'm saying maybe at the end of this week, because Passover is this week, we will see trouble in Jerusalem. And if so, bet on May 12 is the start of second Passover. It's when we should, like I like Ellen White, and this is my answer to Ryan Day, by the way. As he, Christ, ate the Passover with his disciples, he instituted in its place the service that was to be the memorial of his great sacrifice. So we should do the Lord's Supper in place of Passover. It's the way of honoring those times. And this is the perfect fulfillment for the statutes and judgments which enforce those feast days in Leviticus 23rd chapter. So yes, the church is not fully scriptural right now. It's going to be moving that direction, I hope, as we understand this more. God says, in times of ignorance I winked, but in times of judgment we have to repent. And I believe we're coming to times of judgment. Not investigative judgment, time of the dead, but time of the living. Ellen White said it right in volume 9, page 20. Are we to wait till God's judgments fall on transgressors before we tell them how to avoid them? Where is our faith in the Word of God? She asks. Well, the Ryan Days can leave if they want. I hope not. Maybe he'll come back when he understands this. I hope that somebody will call his attention to this video, because Ellen White makes this classic statement in her book on the parables of Christ, Christ's Object Lessons, page 127. She said, in every age there's a new development of truth, a message of God to the people of that generation. Old truth is all essential. New truth is not independent of the old, but an unfolding of it. But whoever rejects or neglects the new, present truth, does not really possess the old. And that's our test. We have to catch new truth, just like we expect Christians to accept Sabbath. When you can't buy or sell unless you keep Sunday, that's the devil forcing people. Okay, God doesn't force anybody. He died to save us and gives us free choice. And we should honor that when he gives us in the 10 Commandments, the fourth command, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you can work and do whatever you need to do, but the seventh day is God's day. It's a memorial. Remember that he made the world in 6 days and rested the seventh. And you can run anywhere you want, but you won't find a better church right now than Adventism, except maybe Messianic Jews, because they keep the annual Sabbath as well. I like Ellen White's statement. This is in the last book she wrote, Prophets and Kings, page 713 and 14. What God purposed to do for the world through Israel, the chosen nation, he'll finally accomplish through his church on earth today, but she didn't define it as the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. You won't even find the word Seventh-day Adventists in her books, because she saw them in apostasy late in life, okay? They hijacked her school, etc. And so she's only talking about God's people and his church today as a covenant-keeping people. And to do that, we're going to need to make a covenant. God made a covenant at Sinai, and he said, if you keep my covenant, you'll be a kingdom. And he later said, return, I'm married to you. He regarded the covenant as a marriage. And that's how the wedding parables fit. We need to make a covenant. Okay, we will need to. I could explain it further, but I don't want to sidetrack too much. This is already over 20 minutes long. Half of Ryan Day's tape I want to finish. But bottom line is, Ellen White can't have it both ways. She couldn't tell us everything we needed to know in her time and still leave stuff open for us to discover in the end time, which she clued us to, that in every age there's a new development of truth. If every age has a new development, surely the end time should. And she said it clearly, more clearly, in volume 2 of the Testimonies, page 692 and 3. She said the time for the unfolding of special truth in regard to this, I gotta close this. This time for the special truth is during the last generations that shall live upon the on the earth. The present truth, which is a test to the people of this generation, was not a test to generation far back. Well, Ellen White's now far back, and it's not a test. Go by the Bible, and you can't excuse yourself from some of the things that she was trying to clue us, but the church didn't accept it, okay? Ellen White is straight. The General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists is baloney, as far as I'm concerned, when they talk about 28 points, and we don't do this or we don't do that. Ellen White clued us to some things we should be doing. I think I can have the references to them. I mean, I just gave you the one on the covenant. What God is going to accomplish through his covenant people, and to them will be fulfilled all the covenant promises made by Jehovah to that ancient people. So we need a covenant. That's as an example of one of what I call 7 seals in Revelation 6 chapter. Here's my book, Earthquake and 7 Seals. Go to my website, Health, Happiness, and Destiny, and get the book. And you can read scriptural basis for things Ellen White said that she didn't say in her time, except maybe just occasional reference, one here or one there. We don't do it today. We think it's not part of Adventism, but it is part of the Bible. Okay, just like Elijah's supposed to come and restore all things. Elijah comes in the context of Malachi 4, 4 and 5. Remember the law of Moses with statutes and judgments. Behold, I send you Elijah. Hello, where are the statutes and judgments in Adventism today? Do we want to be the Elijahs? In Ezekiel 20, verse 11 to 24, those statutes and judgments are 7 times. Statutes, judgments, Sabbaths. Statutes, judgments, Sabbaths with an S. Okay, not seventh-day Sabbath, but annual Sabbaths, the feast days. Okay, those were to teach people truths in the plan of salvation, and designed to teach the people that at the time, this is Ellen White, okay, Christ's Object Lesson, page 34, they were designed to teach the people that at the time appointed, one would come to whom the ceremony pointed. That has to include the bridegroom. God came as bridegroom to Egypt. He took him to a covenant and later said, I'm married. And we're just clueless, dumb, stupid. And times of ignorance, God is winking at all this. But judgment is impending. And you better go by Bible, which is supported at Ellen White, here a little, there a little. Because she couldn't say it all or they wouldn't publish it. They even changed the title of her last book. She titled her last book, The Captivity and Restoration of Israel. It's based on Jeremiah 30, verse 3. They got rid of the title after she died and called it Prophets and Kings, which is meaningless compared to Jeremiah 30, verse 3 and the New Covenant promise, which would be the answer to Ryan Day, because he can't be perfect right now, but if we have the law written in our hearts, we can be, okay? It's in the end time period that he's going to do this, though. In the latter day, the last verse of that chapter says, in the latter day you'll consider it, and that's when he's going to gather us to the land of the covenant. And we got to be willing to go there and risk our lives, and it will look stupid maybe to some people, but you're not going to have the new covenant fulfilled if you don't fulfill the context. And it's in Jeremiah 30, verse 8, 10, 16, and 17. In Ezekiel, 36 chapters, 36, verse 24 to 28. And it's even Isaiah 11:11 says he's going to do the Exodus again from Egypt, etc. Well, America's like Egypt. So, guess what? Ryan, please restudy this. Your salvation may be at stake. Don't just do what your big friends think is great. There's a lot of bitterness against Adventism. Yeah, it's toxic sometimes. I feel toxic against the General Conference for closing their mind to truth, and I have sent stuff to the BRI and the president of the NAD, that's North American Division, by the way. I've called there half a dozen times trying to share what I believe is true, and only had one reply one time. I didn't get the phone call and don't know what it would be, but I've tried, calling back several times. Try to talk to these people. They're out to lunch somewhere, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, the church, defined as Ellen White defines it, a covenant-keeping people is going to be victorious, and we're going to need to make a covenant, and the time for that is soon. Find out how, and get the book. For the price of a Big Mac, you can get a digital copy of this book, The Earthquake and Seven Seals. And God bless you. Thank you for listening, and Ryan Day, hope you can come back when things are looking a little better for you, but it's got to be Bible truth totally, and you've misunderstood the investigative judgment. It is there in Revelation 11:18 about the time of the dead that they should be judged, but that's not the big focus. It's time when God's going to execute judgment, and big stuff is coming. Thank you, and God bless. Bye-bye.